Who are the top 100 players in the 2026 NFL Draft? That is the question that we are asking and that we're going to discuss today. Our latest big board updates are up at playerprofiler.com for Matty Kiwoom and at rosterwatch.com for myself. We've made some moves, but we're making more moves. We're officially just over 4 weeks out from being BOTG in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my man Matty Kiwoom. How are you doing, brother?
Doing good. I'm very excited. I mean, it almost feels like we are now just in that. What are the trade tables or in seats in the upright position? We are starting our initial descent into our destination. Like we are essentially there. We're starting to get these 3.0 mocks from the industry people. You know, we're already on our mocks 4, 5, 6, whatever. So we're really just in that home stretch. The draft will be here in a blink of an eye.
And so, with that being said, we're going to talk about some of the biggest movers inside our top 100 today. Please click that like button. Please click subscribe. Do the damn thing every single day of the week, 7 p.m. Eastern time. You know what it is. Into the top 20. In our first two takes at this show before our internet cutout, a.k.a. my internet cutout, we were starting to talk about Monroe Freeling being the biggest riser in this whole thing. And we're both on the same page with that. This is a guy that you talk about him being a left tackle at Georgia, left tackle in the SEC comparative to a right tackle in Francis Maui Noah and Spencer Fana, who a lot of people have been wanting to move to center, and he worked out at center at the Combine. The positional value is the front-leaning runner for Monroe Freeling amongst the 6'7", 315 pounds, long arms, big hands, everything else that's there with the projection for Monroe Freeling.
Yeah, Freeling rose up the draft boards, and a lot of people caught on after the Combine, but I'm not going to say we were early because my mock 3.0 or my big board 3.0, he was 35. So I was a second round pick, but you could see the traits, you could see the ascension possibility. I hitched my wagon to the wrong horse. I thought this could be Caden Proctor. I thought Proctor would be the guy because I thought there'd be one. I thought there'd be one guy that would dub themselves the true left tackle. It just ended up being Monroe Freeling based on everything you just said. The measurements, where he played in college, and then, of course, the absolute burning down of Indianapolis just killed the Combine.
Give me one more guy you had that's risen up here the last couple of weeks.
So for me, it's been Kenyon Sadiq. Sadiq has risen up pretty dramatically for me, and I'll just come out and say it. I'm not ashamed. I'm not afraid of the process, but it's really what I've done is to shed the hate. He's now up 12 spots to 22. He's a top 24 overall player. He just does it all. The athleticism's there. The blocking is there. There was just something about the player itself that I just didn't really buy into. The lack of production with how could you be this athletic at that school playing with that quarterback and not really have a monster season? And the more I've kind of just watched the Oregon tape, the more I've kind of just studied the player. They don't use tight ends like that. That's just kind of the way that they do it in Oregon. So maybe that's that was just enough for me to write it off. And at the end of the day, it's this draft class is just deprived of sexiness, right? Like we have one left tackle now. We have one for sure QB. The edge rushers are pretty good, but we're going to see some wild things in this draft, and we'll probably talk about it in future episodes. The realization that we're probably going to get 2 linebackers, 2 safeties, and a running back in the top half of the first round is all a possibility. So with the lack of sex appeal, for this class, I just finally gave in and said, you know what, this kid's young enough, and he is a little short, smaller for tight end, but not in today's NFL. 6'3", 240 is good enough to play at the NFL level. He's going to get that high first round draft pick. So I just gave in. He was a huge riser in this iteration.
It's funny you bring him up. He jumped 12 spots for you up to, what'd you say, 22?
22.
So for me, he dropped 11 spots down to 23. So we literally ships meeting in the middle of the night going, hey, let's even this thing out. That's funny. Last one I'll talk about inside the top 15, top 20 area, like Monroe Freeling, is Ruben Bain. Last time we talked about the top 100, I had him at 8. I moved him up to 3, surpassing David Bailey, Caleb Downs, Mendoza, Carnell Tate. I brought Ruben Bain up to 3 here after Arvell Reese and Jeremiah Love. I mean, this is one of those things where You're sitting there and you're critiquing arm length, you're critiquing size. He's a tweener, this, that, and the third. And then you might look up and it really doesn't matter because this guy is a marauder, just like his teammate Akeem Mesidor, who I'm just going to lump in here, moved him up 10 spots up to 35 for me. Like both of these guys are just marauders. And when you talk to everybody, you talk to the offensive linemen at the NFL Combine, it is Mesidor, Bain, Mesidor, Bain, Cassius Howell, Mesidor, Bain. When you're talking about the most difficult player that they went against this year, and even that is a lot of the times. I think I asked 25 guys that question at the NFL Combine, all SEC guys, right? And a lot of the answers was Bain and Mesidor, which should tell you a lot because they only played a couple of SEC teams, and they were obviously a very pain in the ass, I guess would be the right way to say that. Like,
we'll say that politely.
Easy to overlook, both of these guys. When you say size, speed, age, Ruben Bain looks 45. Akeem Mesidor is 45. Like that whole conversation, I just give me Ruben Bain. Like I think Bailey's great, Downs is great, Mendoza's great, but just give me Bain now.
Yeah, I've been on Bain. I haven't gotten too crazy with my Bain, with my Miami Hurricane edge rusher love, because I have Bain at 7 and I have Mesidor at 17. So they're both top 20 players. Because for me, it's like you want to give Mesidor the discount for being old. Yeah. All right, well, then he's going to go in the second half of round 1, meaning he goes to a contender, meaning they don't care about the projectability and the development in the long term. They're going to put him in. They're going to use him. They're going to utilize that, like you called it, marauderness. They're going to use that grit, that tenacity, and they're going to let him get after the quarterback right away. And both of these guys, too, which is so noticeable on film, is just how powerful they are. And then when you kind of look at the measurables, you kind of realize it because we're getting so accustomed to these 6'6", long arm, power forward looking players at the edge rushers. These guys are shorter, 6'2", 6'3", but they're beefy. They're horsepower, and horsepower translates, man. It does.
Give me one more guy. What do you got?
You talked edge rushers. I'll stay on that position because I kind of, the combine opened my eyes, but going back and watching some of this Central Florida tape, Malachi Lawrence was a massive riser for me in this iteration of the Big Board 5.0 that you can get at playerprofile.com, up 19 slots inside my top 50 now. He's 48, 6'4", 253, but it just, the measurables, 96th percentile, speed, the speed score, the burst score, all of that is all there. His arm length isn't crazy long, but no, it's 64th percentile, 33 inches, so it's long enough. And he just such a disruptor, such a high pace, just high octane edge rusher. And now we're starting to hear that round 1 buzz, and I think it's warranted. And even if he is just a top 45 pick, he falls out of the first, he's going to make a team very happy early on. And it just reminds me of a couple guys from last year's class that, the Panthers happened to get them both in their draft, but they didn't go in round 1. And those players that I liked last year. So for me, Malachi Lawrence just kind of started checking a lot of boxes. And again, when we're looking through this draft class, we just want to find people who stand out. And he stood out athletically. Number 2 athletic edge rusher in this class. Number 9 most athletic player of all the players in the class, in a top 30 all-time edge rusher in terms of the athletic score you can get at playerprofile.com. So he just checks a lot of boxes for me. And at this point, it just it wasn't, I guess, no disrespect to anybody, because they're all going to be NFL players, and I'm very proud of all these kids, even though I've never even met them. You got to be proud of them. But it was kind of easy to move them ahead of the running backs and tight ends and linebackers that I had kind of ahead of them.
Speaking of Carolina Panthers, man, that's a team we might be talking about middle of the season when we're doing our kind of GM look back, look forward type of situation that we did with the Bears and the Broncos and the Pats this last year. If that thing hits this year and they hit on a couple of nice draft picks this year, they go out and get Devin Lloyd, Jalen Phillips in free agency, like that could be an interesting team. But that whole division is very interesting going into 2026 with the whole Falcon situation. Where's Tampa at? And then New Orleans is just that little tiny snake slithering through the grass.
I'm a snake.
I'm going to go here with my guy. Dylan Thieneman. Dylan Thieneman was one of the biggest risers overall for me in the top
Mm-hmm.
100. A guy that, again, I didn't have a lot of questions about the ability. I had him 34th. I moved him up to 19. He didn't get a first round grade for me in its purity, but he got close. He got up there because I knew this guy could play football. Like, we saw him down at the Senior Bowl, or no, wait, he was, I don't think he was at the Senior Bowl. That was Bryce Betcher. But I just like everything that Dylan Thieneman brings to the table. And I had one question, and maybe you call me whatever you want to call me, but it's the milk and cookie theory, right? I didn't know if this guy had the wheels. I didn't know if this guy had the athleticism to stick on the back end back there. Like, you got to have the IQ, of an Elon Musk and be a Harrison Smith if you're going to go out there and you're going to play safety. Yeah. And he don't. If Thieneman has that, I think he's almost there. But the athleticism trait that's just going to file in right behind him, running a 4.35, 41-inch vertical, 10'5" broad, 18 reps on the bench. Everything pops off the screen with Dylan Thieneman. You talk about being some of the most athletic players. Like, he's one of the most athletic players at the safety position that we've seen. I think he's 74th all time out of like 500 safeties on playerprofiler.com from that perspective. And, he's not the biggest, not the baddest, but he's the bravest, and he's one of the most athletic. So Dylan Thieneman moves up about 15 spots for me to number 19.
Dylan Thieneman reminded me of a player, and I had to remind myself of who that was. I went back and looked. Cole Bishop. Remember Cole Bishop went at the end of round 2 from Utah? He's just like a souped up version. He's a little bit shorter, but I mean, he's a little bit faster. He's a little bit more burstier. And I think he's got that, what you need above the shoulders to play the safety position. And I think that Thieneman is catching a lot of eyes of the GMs. I mean, we're seeing him mocked now as high as a top 10 draft pick. So this guy, it seems sky's the limit. And we're just seeing more and more of the importance of this position, this kind of flexible, versatile safety that can do it all and can run, can do the wheels. I mean, look what it's done for the Eagles defense when they had Reed Blankenship, who we all kind of thought was a bit of a iffy player, but then all of a sudden, when that secondary is put together with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and you start putting all these ingredients together, all of a sudden you see the importance of a Reed Blankenship. And I think Thieneman going to one of these teams that have, already their CB1 or maybe even a unit put together, and you add a guy like this, man, he can make a big difference.
I just want to say one thing before we jump to our last guy. We each have one more guy, but I want to say that when I finished out, I don't know if you have this data readily available for yourself, but I want to say, because I haven't done this on another show, I had 15 first-round grades officially. That's where I ended up. I think most people might be a little bit lower than that. I'll start 1 through 15 just for the clip that I'm going to make here. Number 1, Arvell Reese, Jeremiah Love, Ruben Bain from Miami, David Bailey, Caleb Downs from Ohio State, Fernando Mendoza, Monroe Freeling, Francis Maui-Noah, Sonny Styles, Peter Woods from Clemson stays a first-round grade for me. Vega Ione from Penn State, Spencer Fano from Utah, Carnell Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State, the only wide receiver up there. Keldrick Falk stays first round grade for me. I'm not adjusting this and pulling him out. I know a lot of people have differing thoughts on Keldrick Falk. And 15th, the final one, is Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU.
I like it. I'm a little bit more generous in my first round grades. I have 27, but if you wanted to cut the line and get a little bit harsher, that would be about 19 based on my actual grades I put up. But I was a little bit more lenient because for me, I just always say, like, if they're going to go in the first round, I know they're going to go in the first round, I end up convincing myself to give them the round 1 grade. So I got 27 there, but you could cut that down to about 19 or 20, I would say.
Okay, you say 19, 20. Give me one guy instead of that 19, 20 that I didn't say that you think is in that conversation.
All right. So did you have Caleb Banks in there?
No, he's fringe. He's 17. He's just outside.
Caleb Banks, that would be the guy I'd want to bring up because I just think this guy's an absolute game wrecker.
Game wrecker. I love that. That's that's my biggest problem is like the next group is a bunch of dudes I love. Love TJ Parker, love Caleb Banks. You know I love Casey Concepcion. Thieneman's there. McNeil Warren's there. Like there's a lot of really, really talented guys that I'm not quite there. And Banks was. I just pulled him back. So let's finish it out. One more big riser here over the last month.
The last guy I'm going to bring up here is a wide receiver. It's Omar Cooper Jr. It's just the hype is getting so loud for this kid. And I'll be honest, I guess some of my hesitancy to have him jump up my ranks was the fact that I just loved Elijah Surratt. I just loved Elijah Surratt, and it was just like, you only one sheriff in town. Maybe that was the mentality. But the more and more you watch him, and then you just keep seeing that catch against Penn State, and you're like, damn, this dude is everything you want in a player. And if he's going to get the hype to be that round one pick, it just I finally gave in because I guess, again, when you get the athleticism at the combine, you match it up with some tape, you start to kind of shed some of the doubts. So that's why he's up 12 spots at 38 for me now. But he's still behind he's probably, let me see what it is. My wide receiver 6, I think it is. I have Boston ahead of him. Concepcion, Lemon, Tyson, and Tate.
So I wasn't going to say this one, but it is one of the biggest risers for me. And you know what? Screw it. Also, I got these two here of trains of thought. One, I'm just going to tell you this. My last mock draft I did up at rosterwatch.com last Monday was 4.0. It was 4 rounds. And at pick 31, I gave your Patriots Eli Stowers, the tight end of Vanderbilt.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And you know what's even funnier than that? When I did my mock 1.0, 2.0 in the summer, I had Stowers going to the Patriots at like 15 or wherever they were projected to finish. That's how big I am on Stowers. That's how high I am on Stowers. That was also probably, as I talked about shedding some of the hate for Sadiq, maybe some of the hate was that I was just a Stowers guy. I still am. If I was a GM, I would rather have Stowers than Sadiq. I don't care about the athleticism. I think that guy's an absolute baller, so I love that. I think that would be great for that team.
All right, my final one is going to be Elijah Surratt. Another guy that you love. I'm coming around. I'm bending the knee, and I brought this up because a lot of my brain and the stuff I've struggled with Surratt is I think he's a little bit slow. I don't love him as a player, but I've worked myself through the Puka Nacua exercise. I've worked myself through the Cooper Cup exercise where you might miss on a guy like that because of how they play and their style. And I think the floor is Xavier Hutchinson. I think the ceiling's a Puka Nacua type. But I've come around on Elijah Surratt. I've got him up to 64 overall, which I think is a good spot. Where do you have him? I moved him up 34 spots from 98 to 64. So he went from the end of the third to the last pick of the second round generally on that. So where do you have him exactly?
I have him at 62.
Oh, gosh, I should bump him up 3 more spots just so I can say I'm ahead of you.
Just so you can say, yeah, no, but for me, like you brought up a couple names that really kind of caught my eye. And one of the names, too, some of the younger folk aren't going to remember this guy, but man, it's tough to not see a little Marquise Colston. I know he's a little shorter, a little thinner, but it's
the original big slot.
The original big slot, and that's just the Surratt type. And it just 15 touchdowns in a season, right? That just translates. That's just gamer stuff. And, maybe because he didn't burn it down at the combine, maybe because he has some of these red flags, he does end up becoming, the Raiders' first pick in the second round. He becomes one, maybe he goes to a situation where you're like, that ends up working out really nice.
All right. I love it. There we go. There are some of the biggest risers inside the top 100 for us in our big boards. You can find Matty's up at playerprofiler.com. You can find my top 100 up at rosterwatch.com. Stay locked in, stay tapped into the channel for the rest of the week as we walk through some 7-round mocks. We talk about who is the wide receiver 1 in the 2026 class. That's the new series I'm working on right now. I said, who's the running back 2? We walk through the whole thing. You can find those videos up on the channel. Now we're walking through the wide receiver 1. I was going to say go follow Matty, but Matty's not on X right now full time.
Elon, if you're listening, help your boy out. Your algos, your bots, they're not helping me. I'm trying everything. I'm making new accounts. They're getting clicked. They're getting sliced. I need help. Help me with X, Elon. Come on.
3 Elon bumps in one show. We'll see what happens to the ratings on this one, but we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Click that like button, click subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Peace.